Now let's look at the header command in PHP. And we've already looked at Hypertext Transfer Protocol headers. I'm going to go ahead and hit F12 to debug. And I'm going to click on the Network tab if it's not there already. And then I'm going to hit Reload. So here's the network request for hello.php. And if I click on here and go to Headers, you can see the request headers, and these are generated by the browser and sent to the web server. They include what page to fetch, what protocol is being used, and so on. And there's also this response header, and this is generated by PHP and sent back to the browser. And it includes things like the status of the request, the type of content that's being sent back, so text, HTML, and Unicode UTF-8 format, content length of the header, and some other stuff. Now you can actually control all of this information that gets sent back, and this is sometimes not only handy but necessary. For example, when I load this page, it gets displayed as HTML in the browser. And the reason that that's happening is because in this response header, the server is telling the browser that it's sending text/HTML. So let's override that. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my hello.php, and I'm going to add a line right at the top here before I do anything else. Scroll to the top. Header content-type text/plain. So now let's see what happens when I reload this page. So I haven't changed the content at all, but now it's getting displayed as just raw text. It's not getting marked up and displayed as PHP. And the reason that happened is because if you look in the response header, content type is now text/plain. The server automatically adds this charset UTF-8 here. But just changing the content type affects how the browser displays the content. And other content types can be image formats. For example, if you're sending binary data that represents a GIF or a JPEG, you would use image/GIF, image/JPEG, image/PNG, and so on. So the content type is important. You can also use this to change the response code. So there's a couple of ways to do this, but I'm going to show you one trick that's kind of cool. I'm going to create a new page, PHP file, and I'm going to call this relocate.php. And all it's going to do is echo hello world, and then I'm going to load it in the browser. So that's relocate.php, and I get my hello world. But now what happens when I change the header? So one of the header fields is the location field, and I can say header location : hello.php. So let's go ahead and reload now. And I'm automatically forwarded to or relocated to my hello.php page. So what's going on is relocate.php, when I include the location header, I get location and then the URL of the page that I want to go to. And it also changes the status code. So it used to be 200 for document found. Now it's 302 for relocate. So let's go ahead and change the content type back to text HTML. And I could have gotten the same effect just by removing this line. And reload. So now it gets displayed correctly as HTML. Now there are some other tricks that you can do with the header. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this page, and then I'm going to click back and click on the request again. And it says 200 OK from cache. So that means it didn't actually reload the page from the web server. It reloaded it from the cache. And often this is what you want, but sometimes it isn't. Sometimes you want to force the browser to reload the page. Now, unfortunately, the exact mechanism for doing that tends to vary from browser to browser a little bit, but I've prepared an example of how to do that for you. So if you go to this page, I'm going to go to the Lesson 6 lecture videos. So right here at the top, these are the header commands that you want to use to bust the cache. So I'm going to go ahead and copy those, and I'm going to go back to week 6, and I'm going to replace this line with those lines. So this is more complicated than you would expect because it works for most browsers, but basically I'm saying the document's going to expire in the past, and I'm also setting some cache control values, and I'm also using a pragma no cache, and different parts of that work for different browsers. But let's see what happens if I go ahead and reload. So I got that page, and then I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to go back and look at the header again. So this time it didn't load it from the cache, it fetched it from the web server again.